Hey everybody, so this time we're on to Act 2 of A Midsummer Night's Dream. Um, the first scene of Act 2 introduces an entirely new group of characters into the play that we hadn't seen yet in Act 1. Specifically the fairies, who seem to be these sort of magical, mythological, supernatural beings who in various ways sort of get themselves involved with and interfere with the affairs of humans, though they themselves seem to be these sort of immortal, otherworldly kind of beings. Um, the first fairy character that we meet is Puck, who comes in at the beginning of Act 2, Scene 1, where a just sort of anonymous fairy meets Puck. And the anonymous fairy seems very excited to have met Puck. It seems like in the world that these characters exist in, Puck is sort of a celebrity among his own community. Um, Puck's job basically seems to be that he is a servant to the king of the fairies, a man named Oberon, who we'll talk more about in a minute. And Puck, broadly speaking, kind of, he does jobs for Oberon, but also kind of helps Oberon with his schemes. But beyond that, Puck sort of seems to be this kind of prankster character. The fairy that Puck's talking to, this is around line 32 in Act 2, Scene 1, is, saying, hey, you're Puck, or also, apparently Puck is also known as Robin Goodfellow, because he has an alias, I don't know. And and basically the fairy says, hey, you're Robin Goodfellow, you're Puck, you're this guy who's known for doing all of these pranks. And Puck, and this starts at line 43, Puck says, thou speakest aright. I am that merry wanderer of the night. I jest to Oberon and make him smile, when I a fat and bean-fed horse beguile, neighing in likeness of a filly foal. And sometimes lurk I in a gossip's bowl in the very likeness of a roasted crab, and when she drinks against her lips I bob, and on her withered dewlap pour the ale, the wisest ant telling the saddest tale, sometime for a 3-foot stool mistaketh me, then I slip from her bum, down topples she. A few things to note about this speech. First of all, you'll notice that Puck is speaking in rhyme. This connects him to previously we'd seen the characters who were in love speak in rhyme. Lysander, Hermia, and Helena spoke in rhyme in Act 1. The fairies don't necessarily always rhyme, but they do quite a bit, and Puck in particular is a character who speaks in a lot of different poetic styles and poetic forms throughout the play. In this speech, he's talking in iambic pentameter, right? I am that merry wanderer of the night is a very pentameter line, but it's rhyming pentameter. And in this speech, he specifically talks about pranks that he likes to pull. Apparently, his favorite pranks that he does to make Oberon happy are he pretends to be a cute lady horse to fool the male horse and get him all worked up. He makes old ladies spill their drinks on themselves, and a different old lady, a wise aunt, telling us. I do love the detail that it's the wisest aunt telling the saddest tale. So some woman's telling a very serious story, and Puck pretends to be a stool and sits there and waits for her to try to sit down, and then he moves out from under her, so this person telling this very serious story falls on their ass. So that's Puck. He's sort of our prankster character. He'll end up being arguably the most important character in the play in terms of the plot. Puck's sort of hijinks, and you see this by the end of Act 2, Puck's hijinks become the real driver of the plot. The other fairy characters that we meet, the other major ones, are Oberon and Titania. They are the king and queen of fairyland. When they come into the play, they're basically having a big fight, right? And specifically a fight about infidelity. Right, Titania says to him, you know, thou hast stolen away from fairyland, and in the shape of Corin sat all day playing on pipes of corn and versing love to amorous Phillida. Um, there's some Greek myth references there that are a little opaque, but basically what she's saying is that he's like pretended to be a sort of poet shepherd figure, the same kind of thing that we saw in Marlowe's The Passionate Shepherd to His Love. That like Oberon is like pretended to be this amorous shepherd poet and has been out, flirting and hooking up with ladies who aren't his wife. Um, Oberon comes back at Titania and accuses her of being of not just favoring Theseus, but actually kind of harboring really strong feelings for Theseus. Apparently, Oberon is somewhat partial to Hippolyta. So they sort of go back and forth and make accusations to each other about their infidelities. They also are having an argument. Titania has sort of like adopted this changeling boy that one of her followers was the mother of this child, and the mother died, and the child is now in Titania's care. Oberon wants this boy. He says at various points that he wants to train this boy to be, at one point he uses the word henchman. At another point he uses the word squire. Squire is like an assistant to a knight. So in one way or another, he wants this boy to be his servant. Titania seems to want him to be her servant, and they're fighting about this. In the midst of all this, Titania gives a really important speech that starts, it's on page 35 in this book, but it's line 81 of Act 2, Scene 1, where, she says, first of all, you're just jealous of me, and then she mentions this, and never since the middle summer spring met we on hill, in dale, forest, or mead, by paved fountain, or by rushy brook, or in the beached margent of the sea, to dance our ringlets to the whistling wind, but with thy brawls thou hast disturbed our sport. It's basically what she's saying. It's very, very fancy language to basically describe the fact that Oberon and Titania have not been intimate with each other for a very long time, because, well, her claim is that Oberon, with thy brawls, thou hast disturbed our sport, that basically Oberon's going around sort of hooking up with random ladies and having a good old time and is not making time for his wife. But then she keeps going, and it's interesting what apparently are the consequences when the king and queen of fairyland stop being intimate with each other. So she keeps going here. Therefore the winds, piping to us in vain as in revenge, have sucked up from the sea contagious fogs, which falling in the land hath every pelting river made so proud, that they have overborne their continents. The ox hath therefore stretched his yoke in vain, the ploughman lost his sweat, and the green corn hath rotted ere its youth attained a beard. The fold stands empty in the drowned field, the crows are fatted with the murring flock, the nine yada yada yada. Basically what she's saying is that nature has gone awry, right? Rheumatic diseases do abound, the seasons alter, it's snowing when it shouldn't be snowing, it's hot when it shouldn't be hot. Basically the sort of like natural features of nature, that's a weird way to put it, but nature itself has gone awry. And it's And here, therefore, it seems like when the king and queen of fairyland stop hooking up, it's like fertility itself stops. Which, last time I talked about how different characters in the play seem to have different ideas of marriage. This seems to introduce another idea. We might call it like fertility, or an idea that marriage is about sort of like harnessing this kind of life force that keeps the world moving. And so Titania gives voice to that. Near the end of Act 2, Scene 1, a couple of things happen. Oberon and Puck hatch a plan. Oberon apparently has acquired this love potion. The rules of the love potion are that if you put it on the eyes of someone who is asleep, whenever they wake up, they'll fall in love with the first person that they see. And so basically Oberon is going to have Puck put this onto Tadia so that she will fall in love with some random person and be so distracted that Oberon can then abduct this boy and make him his servant. Um, this is a very strange argument, and if you're thinking he's seriously planning to drug his wife to win an argument, yes, that does seem to be where Oberon is headed. It's kind of dark. In the meantime, they encounter Helena, who Helena is chasing after Demetrius. Right, we're out in the woods, and Lysander and Hermia have gone out into the woods because they're going to run away from Athens to elope. And now Demetrius and Helena come chasing after them because Helena has told Demetrius that Lysander and Hermia are leaving town. And basically, Demetrius wants her to leave him alone because he's not interested. He's chasing after Hermia. Helena keeps kind of running along, throwing herself at him. She gives one of the more remarkable speeches in the play. This is on 43, and this one it's line 202 of Act 2, Scene 1. She says to him, "I am your spaniel." Right? She's talking to Demetrius. "I am your spaniel, and Demetrius, the more you beat me, I will fawn on you. Use me but as your spaniel. Spurn me, strike me, neglect me, lose me. Only give me leave, unworthy as I am, to follow you. What worser place can I beg in your love, and yet a place of high respect with me, than to be used as you use your dog?" So basically what she's saying here is, I want to be your dog. I want to sort of follow you around and gaze at you adoringly, and you can kind of treat me like garbage, and it won't matter. I'll keep following you around. Among other things, Helena has some weird ideas about how people ought to treat dogs. But regardless, it's an interesting speech for showing just how down on herself Helena is, that she's willing to settle for this. If I can't be your girlfriend, I'll be your dog. That's okay with me. So poor Helena, always with the low self-esteem. Later on in the same act, she proclaims that she is ugly as a bear, which, for the record, it's repeatedly asserted that Helena and Hermia are basically equally attractive. It's just that Demetrius doesn't like her, so Helena decides that she's hideous. Anyway, Oberon witnesses all this. He feels sorry for Helena, and he says, "Oh, by the way, Puck, use some of the extra love potion on this Athenian kid so that he'll fall in love with this sad girl, and then she won't be so sad." So Oberon and Puck have this other scheme going. In the meantime, Lysander and Hermia come out into the woods as well. They have a lengthy, it's on page 51 in this one, in Act 2, Scene 2. They have a long conversation. I think that Shakespeare intends this to be kind of a cute conversation where they're sort of arguing about their sleeping arrangements. Like Lysander wants to sort of sleep next to Hermia, and she wants them to kind of go to slightly separate parts of the woods while they take a nap so that they won't be right next to each other. I mean, among other things, I think that the scene is Shakespeare kind of establishing that, Hermia is sort of like a good, chaste, moral young woman. And it's worth noting that ultimately, Lysander kind of pleads a little, but ultimately he gives in and says, "Fine, we'll do it your way. I'll go sleep over here and give you your space." So, it's also that, like, Lysander, I mean, yeah, he's a little, I don't know. I don't know if thirsty is still a slang term, but he's a little bit of that here. But ultimately he goes along with it. So, there's a kind of politeness to him. Of course, I mean, you can probably see the plot twist coming from a mile away as you're reading through Act 2. Puck puts the love potion on the wrong kid, right? Oberon said to him, "Go find that Athenian youth." Put the love potion on him. Puck then finds Lysander and says, "Oh, this must be the guy." Puts the love potion on Lysander. Helena comes walking into the scene. Lysander pops awake and immediately falls in love with Helena. Gives a great big long speech about that. He says, this is line 117. Content with Hermia? No, I do repent the tedious minutes I with her have spent. Not Hermia, but Helena I love. Who will not change a raven for a dove? So basically saying, I'm not interested in Hermia anymore. Helena, that's who I'm interested in. The raven dove line, of course, doves are often associated with purity and beauty and so forth. So partly he's saying that Helena's the dove that he's after now. It's also probably a comment on how the two characters look. There are a few more places where Shakespeare does this, but basically it's made clear at various points that Hermia is a brunette and Helena's a blonde. So also changing a raven for a dove is, now he's into the blonde girl. So basically, by the end of Act 2, everything's been flipped on its head. We're out in the woods. It's the middle of the night. Hermia wakes up all alone because Lysander takes off to go after Helena. Lysander's in love with Helena now. Helena doesn't know what's going on. She thinks that Lysander's making fun of her. Demetrius is after Hermia, but can't find her. Puck and Oberon are trying to interfere with all this stuff. So by the end of Act 2, things are going bananas. So keep on reading, and we'll talk about it some more.